Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel of Conglomeration Cat. Today I'm going to do my celebration and my recollection of Salem's Lot, the original 1979 miniseries. It's actually celebrating its 45th anniversary this year, which is really hard to believe. It seems like it just came out not too long ago, but it's amazing how time just gallops. I was told by my mother and father that I really was a very happy child. I really didn't have a lot of high maintenance issues. I got along with most everybody quite well in school and with family. And both my mother and dad were classified as mavericks, meaning that they would wake up at 3 or 3:30 in the morning with ideas or concepts, and they would often get up from a really deep sleep, get on their robes and head down to either a shop or a room that gave them the ability to create or come up with very creative ideas. A lot of the times we didn't buy furniture. A lot of times my father used to get wood that was scrap wood or leftover wood to make tables, chairs, cabinets, sometimes guitars. He was always extremely creative and always had a restless mind. And as a child, it was absolutely wonderful to be able to see these creations come to life. My mother, who I didn't know very much at the beginning of my life, she happened to become the first fire marshal, fire inspector for the state of California in 1974. So when she accomplished that feat, I was two or three, so I don't remember her as much as I remembered my dad. He happened to be what they call the quote-unquote stay-at-home wife. So he did all the chores, he took care of me. My mom would probably get up roughly at 5 a.m. and her commute, I think, was roughly an hour and a half to 2 hours away. So by the time she came home and got settled in, it was way past the time that I was put down to bed. So probably about 11 or 11:30 at night. I'm sure she came in to greet me and to be able to give me some contact, but I really don't recall a lot of those years. I was born in SoCal in Santa Cruz, California, which was a fantastic upbringing, fantastic area for opportunities, growth, entertainment. Fantastic years in the 70s. In the late 70s, the cost of living and an opportunity came up to where we moved from SoCal, California to Redding, California. And outside of Redding, there is a couple towns, not necessarily cities per se, but more towns, called Anderson and Happy Valley. So we lived in Happy Valley, which was outside of Anderson, kind of on a plateau. Maybe one elementary school, one preschool, and one high school. There really wasn't a lot of entertainment. There wasn't a lot of anything. So growing up mostly as an only child, for the most part, I grew up with my brother back in Santa Cruz, but as we moved up to Redding, he actually stayed behind and stayed with some high school friends' parents to continue finishing high school. I grew up as an only child from roughly about 7 on up. So I had a lot of downtime to create and use my imagination to its fullest extent. And keep in mind, no internet was present. There wasn't a lot of stores. There wasn't a lot of outlets where we were. We were, in a sense, in the boonies. We were in the woods. And the closest city from Happy Valley was to Redding, and it roughly was a 25-minute to a half-hour drive to get groceries, to get anything that you needed. So it was quite the excursion to get in the car and kind of plan your trip out. And if you forgot anything, you almost had to wait till the next time that you had to go shopping. You just couldn't hop in the car and it was around the corner at a stoplight. It was definitely remote. So as I was getting older, my eyes were starting to obviously develop and retain and put stuff in what I call my file box in my head. So we had 3 channels to a TV. There was no cable. So I spent a lot of time scanning through TV guides, not necessarily getting the words or not necessarily forming a lot of the text, but my eyes were more visual, getting the fact that I really enjoyed pictures, and pictures kind of gave me sentences, or it gave me paragraphs to go by. So anytime something like Kiss would come on, or I would see them in the TV guide, I would literally grab any pen or highlighter or anything that I could circle in my mom's or dad's TV guide and literally circle as much as I could without destroying the material of the page. Or make a note to watch anything that grabbed my attention. Kiss for me in the 70s was complete eye candy, and of course followed by the music. There were wonderful TV shows as a child for me to kind of sit down and have my own time and start to kind of somewhat get some knowledge and really develop my own, vocabulary. And a sense of personality. So back in 1979, you had shows like The Dukes of Hazzard. That was very popular back in my time. Didn't necessarily get the script or get what the concept was. I just loved watching the cars jump in the air in slow motion. I thought that was just so incredibly well filmed and extremely visual. It was just eye candy. When Kiss would come on, it would be on children's shows like 321 Contact, sometimes on newsreels, like there was a show called 2020 with Hugh Downs. They did a segment during that point. So anything that I could catch visually, it was like Christmas Eve going into Christmas morning. It was very spectacular. There was a lot of great musical, cultural inventions and creations in 1979. I think that was a very sweet year for constant entertainment. And like I said, 3 channels to a TV and not really being exposed to a lot of things in the flesh. Me and the TV were kind of brother and sister. And it just happened to be that at one time I picked up one of the TV guides from November 17th to November 23rd or the 24th. Normally in TV guides back in the day, you had little articles that you would flip through and not necessarily read. There would be ads and adverts of anything from cookies to cheese bread to kitchenware by Sunbeam. I mean, there was just so much at the beginning. I would literally just kind of flip through all that and get to Saturday, because they would normally start with the weekend going into the TV guide. And I remember opening up one of these TV guides, and there was this kind of, I would say, advertisement that took half the page or most of a page of a TV guide, and it happened to be Salem's Lot. And I don't recall the name as such, but the visual stopped me. It hypnotized me. I was kind of just frozen in the moment. Not out of fear, not out of anxiety, nor was it intimidating. It was just my eyes zoomed in to the way it was advertised, the lettering, the lighting, the shade, and the Marston House. And then at the bottom of this advertisement was this figure in the window with their hand up, like they're tapping or scratching at the window. And somehow my eyes honed in over 120% on just that alone. Probably because I thought that the kid or the illustration of the child was very much like me, maybe around the same age, the same physique. So there was something that literally from day one I just honed in on, and I went, yes, what is that about? What does that imply? And to the point where I would draw it on school books. So I remember bookmarking that TV guide with either an index card or, once again, circling it, doing something that would remind me of it. And I think daily I just kept looking at it. Don't know if the word obsession would come into this conversation at this particular time, but I was definitely drawn to it. And like I said, it wasn't out of fear. It was just complete intrigue and interest of what is this about? It's not a cartoon. It's not a comedy. It's not like anything of Dukes of Hazzard, kind of the Incredible Hulk, but not really. It was the illustration. These were illustrations that drew you in. and provoked your interest, especially in the 70s, going into the 80s. So I did watch it. I didn't recall much of it other than the child floating at the window, which most Salem's Lot enthusiasts will definitely hone in on as their lasting impression of the film, or the TV miniseries, if you want to get technical. Um, Anybody that asks me, or anybody that has watched that, that is the first scene, or that is the absolute target, or the emphasis of Salem's Lot, is the child floating at the window, because at the time there really was nobody doing that kind of filmmaking. For a lot of people, it was not traumatizing, but it definitely lasted a very huge impression on many people's memories. I was intrigued with that, but I was also zeroing in on the Marston house. I thought the house was definitely haunted, but it didn't scare me. It drew me to it. It's kind of like that line in the movie that I do disclose at the beginning of this video, is that I think an evil house attracts evil men. But what if a house attracted evil men? Why did it attract me? And I think all my life, to a certain degree, I've always asked myself that, because I was never, in a sense, quote unquote, evil. I don't think seeking revenge on other people is a way to solve any issues with anybody, or to get back, or to create darkness that I think would be beneficial in my life. I felt angry, I felt irritable, I felt resentful of certain things that have happened in my life since I was a child, and even when I was a child, even though I had a great upbringing, and my parents were very, very protective, to not shield me, but to direct me in a way if there was a lot of emotional baggage between them, which eventually happened, away from me. So I really wasn't exposed to a lot of shock value.